this should be awesome. I should be ecstatic. We're going to hit six figures this year. Life is good. But that $10,000 a month was costing me $50 hours a week in client fulfillment and being away from my family.
This business podcast, the Two Business Guys Mastermind, uncovers for you secrets and share tips and tricks to entrepreneurship as they mastermind on how to have startup, operational, and overall business success so that you can go on to get better results. Enjoy. So, Rob, I'm really curious about this. Well, what are people going to do when they just hate their business, or their spouse hates their business, or but they're making so much money that you go, well, I'm making a lot of money, but I really just have something I don't like. I'm not talking about me, everybody. So this is what we're going to talk about today. We're going to be jumping into what exactly
and I can say it from me. Like, it's happened twice to me in building my business, so I get it completely. And the interesting thing about it, and I'll talk from my experience, and I'll talk from experiences of clients, right? When it happened to me, I remember the first time it happened to me was when we hit six figures, first time, right? And I say the first time because we hit it and then changed some stuff, dropped back, and then got back to it. When I hit six figures the first time, I remember distinctly. I was speaking with one of my coaches. I was going through a coaching certification program, so I had a coach that was coaching me, a mentor coach, while I was going through my program. And so we were talking about my business, and I was like, I should be happy. I'm depressed. Right? Like, my business I was about 6 months into business at this time, and we had just inked a couple of deals where I was making, I think, close to $10,000 a month, like $8,000 to $10,000 a month. And so I'm like, this should be awesome. I should be ecstatic. We're going to hit six figures this year. Life is good. But that $10,000 a month was costing me $50 hours a week in client fulfillment and being away from my family.
Oh, wow.
And now, for those of you all that don't know my background, I started my business after having been a teacher, then been a lawyer in the Marine Corps, and then getting out of the Marine Corps. And so I had a law degree. I could have gone and practiced law, but I didn't want to run a business that required me to be a whole bunch of hours in the office away from my family. And so while the money was good, what it was requiring from me is I was getting up early in the morning because I was having to drive to a client to do the work that I was doing 2 days a week. I was driving an hour and a half north, all different types of things, right? And so I'm there all day, and it's an hour and a half back. So I'm 3 hours on the road plus an 8-hour day on those days. And I'm not seeing my family. And it's just like if I would have been in a law practice or whatever. And as a matter of fact, it's worse because at least in a law practice, I can do 9 to 5 and then I'm good unless I want to go get new clients and all the rest of the type of stuff, right? Or unless I'm in court. And so I'm sitting there and I'm talking to my coach, and she's like, so
that's what you asked for.
What business would you like to build? And I had to actually think about the type of business that I wanted to build, right? And it was very different from what I was doing. And so then I had to go and we did, the whole thing. What's the obstacles that are in your way? How do you overcome those obstacles? And then I said about a plan, and we went to build a different business. And now, so I went through that one time. The second time was really interesting because I built that business sort of, but the issue was I built a business that was built off of my service. So the business was great. My referrals, my recommendations were great. I was the man. People were, you were great. You need to get Rob, those types of conversations. But again, I was never trying to build a business that was built on me, because I know that if there's a business built on me, I can't go away for a month. I can't go and just focus on my kids for a month or this or that. I can't do any of that type of stuff. If I go away, the business dies, right? And Robert Kiyosaki talks about this in Cash Flow Quadrant. He talks about the difference between a small business and a big business. And the basic idea is that a small business, the owner has a really well-paying job. And that was exactly my situation, right? We had
Gerber talks about this.
Exactly. Gerber talks about it in E-Myth,
And what about this new book you're reading, Built to Sell?
The new book, Built to Sell, John Warlow. if you haven't read this book, go read this book. It's phenomenal. And it's phenomenal for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's phenomenal because it's easy to read, it's easy to follow. The story is catchy. But number two, it gives you kind of step by step playbook of what you need to do in order to change your business over. And, we're in that process right now. And it's been kind of a couple of months because I got into that period where again, it was like, man, I don't really like the grind of having to be everything in the business. Like, I sell 90% of the stuff that gets sold. I deliver 90 some percent of the stuff that gets delivered, right? Like, yes, I have people that are helping me to do my job, but
Still my
I'm
job.
doing the majority of the stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so now we've embarked on that journey of moving and productizing and getting to the point where we're selling something. Like, I'm training 6 coaches. I've got things that I've already had conversations. I've already made sales of stuff that I don't necessarily have to deliver, that my company can deliver without me. And that experience, I mean, it's just been amazing. And so, I think that, when the book was talking about it, and with a lot of entrepreneurs that I deal with, that's the struggle. The struggle
It
is
is.
when you have employees and you're doing everything, the employees, even though they're helping, you don't feel like they're helping as much because you still have a whole bunch of stuff that you have to do.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And as the business grows, it actually adds stress to you instead of taking away stress from you. And that was the experience that I was on. It was like there was almost a fear of growth because you know your capacity level. And so
Sure.
you know
Yeah.
that you're running up against it. Whereas with big businesses, and the book talks about it, I've seen it. I've coached other people with it, right? And I've got my mentors that are showing me when you build it right, growth doesn't increase your workload as much as it increases the business's workload. So growth means hiring more people. Growth means, right? But when you're the bottleneck, when you're the person, when you're the delivery person, when you're that person, what growth means is that it doesn't matter if you hire more people because there's still more stuff for you to do.
That's so funny that you say that. I kind of face that same situation even now because I like to take on different things because I'm super curious and I love just trying and applying some of the things that I know to different type businesses. So
Mhm.
those are the times when I'm feeling like you're feeling now is go get a whole different industry because I think it's interesting and or
Mhm.
I see its cracks and then I go, well, let me see if I can help you apply this business model, my personal business model
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
this business model that you have that's cracking, right? And this
Mhm.
business model, and there's one I'm into right now, and I can't speak on it because I'm under NDA and all that, but it is literally, it's a show up business. And
Mhm.
what I'm talking to them about is let's disabuse you of the idea that you book it, you show up and fulfill it. Let's get away from that. So one of the tasks is okay, I need you creating content constantly. And then we're
Mhm.
going to let the content do its thing. It's going to go out there and crawl. It's going to go out there and be salesperson. It's going to go out there and give people a chance to click on it and then put money in your pockets. All these different things, right? And I tell even the entrepreneurs that I coach, they always like, dude, why are you always trying to get me to create a content business? It's because you do it once and you sell it forever. You
Mhm.
do it once, you bolt on to it. You can, oh my gosh, right? So, and that allows you to not have to always show up in the
Mhm.
business. It shows up for you, right? It
Exactly.
acts, and then
Exactly.
it's just, I love the idea that you can bolt on, right?
Mhm.
I'll give you an
Mhm.
example, Rob. I have a book that I brought back in for, I wrote it in 2010. So I says
Mhm.
I'm going to create this book and I'm gonna, put it out as a NFT, and I'm using a Bookio, but Bookio, I didn't think about that. Bookio. Anyway, so you can create. So I brought it back in, and I created a more interactive book. I literally took all the chapters, kind of refreshed them a little bit, and made slides out of them so I can make it visual. And then
Mhm.
the idea was to put it out as an NFT. This is before the NFT market went to heck in a handbasket, but I brought it back in, created it, created the cover, everything, right? So it's
Mhm.
available now for sale. And
Mhm.
then I says, well, fine, I'll just make it into a PDF and I just put it out there as a PDF where people can download it and blah, blah, blah. And then they get the kind of the highlights, the
Mhm.
summary view, right? And
Mhm.
that's what you can do with content, creating
Yep.
something that you don't always have to show up for. And
Yep.
that's one of the keys.
No, it's really powerful, and that whole concept of having to show up, I think, is really important. And even for because there's businesses where there's a certain, like, for example, and a classic example of this is in the cosmetology fields, right? So haircutters, barbers, hairdressers, stylists, estheticians, etc. Right? And you've seen this model before. What happens is somebody's good at cutting hair. Great. Normally they got people that come to them or they go to people to cut their hair. Then they get enough clientele that they're like, I can pay for a spot.
Yeah.
So now they got a spot where people come to them so that they don't got to do all the traveling. And so now they're cutting hair, which is great. But when the transition happens from a hustle to a business is when they start realizing, wait a minute, I can find other people that can cut hair relatively as good as I cut hair. And if I set up the spot and make sure that there's people coming, we can cut lots of hair. And then eventually you start seeing that the person who used to do everybody's hair is at the shop talking to different people, but not really cutting a lot of hair. And then you start seeing them out and they bringing stuff in and they doing stuff so that they can sell, and it starts growing and starts growing. And that's when they have a business. Up until that point in time, right? We have a business where you're self-employed. A business where you're self-employed. This is the small business in Robert Kiyosaki's um, uh, cash flow quadrant. The business where you're self-employed is exactly that. You have a job. Now
Mm-hmm.
you are also the boss of that job. So, right, some people say that you got the worst boss in the world, right? But at the end of the day, you have a job. And here's why it's problematic. Nobody's going to buy that job from you
It's
for
funny.
any value.
Yeah, we talked about this just a couple of episodes ago, everybody, and the verses, right?
Hmm.
And but this one goes deeper, right? This one is more, hey, I hate this business. And then what are you doing then? Right?
Yeah.
When you just have this visceral, I, I'd really like to speak to everybody about how do we evaluate what we got? How do we look at
Hmm.
it and go, okay, I've been the business, but here is the value of its parts. What would you say to that, Rob? If you've gone
I would
into a
say the
business and you
first,
says, let's value this thing.
right now, I love that. I love that. And I think the first questions you have to ask yourself when you're trying to value your business, because a lot of times we go into it biased. I know that I do. Like I have to stop myself from being biased about how amazing all the stuff that we have is, and oh my God, this is so great, and blah blah blah, right? Because a lot of, here's the cycle. You do something well, people start gassing you up and telling you that you do something well. You think that it's worth more to other people than it is, and you don't realize that you're worth more to other people, but your business is not. And
So you're saying they're buying you?
yes, they're buying you,
We've
and
seen
so
that
the
before in the technology space, right? Where they buy the engineering. It's
Mhm.
like, what, you don't want the business? No, we're shutting that down. But we want
Exactly.
them.
Exactly. And so the key thing that you have to look at is first question you have to ask yourself is what would somebody pay for this business as it stands currently?
Yeah.
Now, here's an indicator for you. If you're hating your business, you can imagine that other people probably will too.
It's funny because we got let me push back on that a bit.
Hmm.
Right. And now y'all know, Rob and I usually agree on stuff, right? I'm over here kind of, y'all see me on the shows, right? And I'm like, but then because I've watched companies do roll-ups
Uh-huh.
and you're thinking, why are they rolling up that business?
Hmm.
Because somewhere along the line, they've created some kind of systems. They've created a means by which to not hate the business. And when they roll up, they're usually buying, kind of the mom and pop operation that's making good money, right? It's kind of like, as I think about it, it's what Alex Hormozy talks about, right? In his business, he says, "Look, I want to.
Hmm.
Why I'm giving you so much stuff for free is I want your business to get to a $1 to $3 million so I can come and
So I can invest in it.
invest in it. But then once I invest in it, they've got these systems in place whereby
Hmm.
they then grow the business in a whole different way. And I suspect that it has to do with we've got systems in place
Right.
that we could take any business,
Hmm.
skyrocket it to X while
Hmm.
you do Y.
Exactly. No, and I don't disagree. I don't think it's so much that we disagree as much as it is there's a difference. Like, and those are let's say it this way. Those are the exceptions that prove the rule. The companies that get rolled up are the companies where someone sees something in your
Mm-hmm.
pile of mess that you don't see in your pile of mess,
Mm-hmm.
and they know how to extract it and make it look good, right? As we all know, right? Diamonds are found in dirt, in lumps of coal, in otherwise meaningless and useless rock.
Mm-hmm.
However, the key is that while coal and diamonds are roughly the same thing, diamonds have been compressed more, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You find them and right, they're worth way more. But when you look at a natural uncut diamond, it doesn't look like what's on people's rings and fingers, all the
Right.
rest of it.
Yeah.
It takes someone understanding how to take that and cut that, right? That's why the phrase diamond in the rough
Mm.
is a thing, because unless you know what a diamond in the rough looks like, you don't know that you have a diamond. It looks like you got a rock, a lump of coal, right? Same thing in these businesses. And don't get me wrong, if you can get a business that's making six figures or multiple six figures or seven figures, you have a system and a process there, but that has to be extracted. A lot of what I do when I go into other businesses is help them to extract the processes and simplify the processes, figure out how to align their talent and their processes so that the business can be actually more comfortable. So it's not that there's not value there, but the point is, most likely, if you don't like your business, no one else is going to see the value either.
Mm.
So the key is you have to develop a business that actually does what you want it to do. And that starts with asking yourself, what do you want your business to do for you?
That's interesting. Because that's my jam is I ask an entrepreneur constantly, what do you want your business to do for you? Let's start there, right? Because we
Exactly.
start building. We talk about the business GPS.
Hmm.
It's oftentimes, and I just did a series of interviewing a whole bunch of entrepreneurs for a program that I work with, and that's what I would ask. What do you want your business to do for you? Right? When we start thinking 3, 5, whatever year, and oftentimes, I had maybe two people said, and this is what I wanted to make for me. It was all kind of other stuff, and I would have to say, what about revenue? You wanted to make you any money? Well, yeah. Well, how much? I don't know. Okay, right.
That's the key.
Let's
And that's what
establish that
that's where most
first.
people are. Most people don't. And even the ones that have revenue targets, most of them are just pie in the sky. They don't really know how to make that money or what it takes to make that money or whether they're going to like doing what it takes to make that money. And so in a lot of businesses, right? I remember in part of the book, one of the things that I was reading in the book was it was talking about, when you have a sales team,
Which
one of the
one? Built to
beautiful
sell.
things built to sell. One of the things it was talking about is when you have a sales team that knows what they're doing, they know their numbers and all the rest of it, then they
Mm.
know how much work it's going to take. And when you have a process where you can tell people how much work, how many hours, how much resources it's going to take to make another $2 million, another $3 million, that's comfortable because now that's just an investment, right? You got to watch the investment. You got to make sure that the investment that people are doing what they're supposed to do. But it's not Hail Mary. It's not a prayer. It's not a hope. And so often, business owners will say things like, I want to make $100,000, and it's like, so how you gonna do that? It's like, I don't know, right? Or I want to make $1 million. How you gonna do that? I don't know,
Man, I bet
right?
that drives you bananas.
No,
Being a numbers
not
guy.
yeah, being a number. I mean, and for me, I get it though. I empathize because I was that way in my business. I remember before I really understood what people paid me for and how people paid me and how to productize my services. one of the things that used to be so frustrating for me was I knew that I was just saying numbers, that I had no idea how to make them.
Mm.
And so it made it feel like it was not really attainable. And part of that feeling of being fed up with or tired of the business was that reality. It's like, I don't know how I'm gonna go make this money. I don't have any idea. I can't even plan because I don't know, right? And I had to learn that lesson. So over time, I started learning how to productize what I do and how to have the concept of before I set the revenue target, I looked at the thing that I was going to try to sell and I figured out how many of those things do I need to sell and what do I think is reasonable and okay, what do I need to do to sell this? Okay, now I can set a target where I know I can get there because I can do this, right? Instead of just setting numbers out there. And the funny thing about it is once you start doing that, the opportunities start happening, people start seeing you, right? I just had an opportunity. I was talking with one of my clients that is in the nonprofit space, but they do some work in the for-profit market management consulting space. And I was like, I did a workshop for them that they loved. And I was like, hey, one of the things I'm wondering if you love this, great. Can you introduce me to somebody that you know that needs this workshop, right? And that you could tell them your experience, so that I don't have to tell them your experience.
Sure. Yeah.
They were like, of course I can, no problem. And the beautiful part of it was, she's like, I can do you one better. We actually have our portfolio of things that we do, and one of the things that we want to
Portfolio
do is this
companies.
thing, right? And one of the things that we want to do is this thing. If we are selling this, can we plug you in to do that for I was like,
Oh,
no,
yeah.
you
Yeah.
you can't outsource that to me. How dare you? Of course you can, right? So now from one referral ask,
That's funny.
that's the gift that keeps on giving because now they've added me into and added and they've already gone through it and understand the power of it. So that workshop is now part of what they sell.
Yeah. It's embedded consultancy,
Exactly. So now
right?
they just bring me jobs. And the beauty of it, like I said, I'm training coaches right now. Right. So eventually it's not just me that's doing these workshops.
Yeah. Yeah. That's that process stuff, right? When you start thinking about it. I was reading a story about a lawyer. She hated her job. She hated it. I mean, she just like, went through law school
Hmm.
and she was making some good change. We've talked about it before, I think. I can't remember her name right now, but anyway, she was making some really good money.
Hmm.
And we're talking really good, right? 300 some thousand or
Yeah, on the
whatever it
ground.
is.
Yeah. Ashley
And
Kirkland. Yep.
yeah, yeah.
Or
And she
Kirkwood.
says, this was, she didn't like it. So then she started
Hmm.
um getting her processes and understanding, I think trademarking her processes, I think, and then created a team. And then
Hmm.
she started selling that. That
Hmm.
made her a lot more money. It made her a lot more happy. And I think there's more value given to the world. Here's something that happened recently. A friend of mine
Hmm.
sends out a little note on social media, basically saying, "Hey, how would you all feel if I told you I just passed the bar or something like that?" Well, I got on the phone, or next time I saw her, I was like, "You better not." Right now, okay. Let me stop there. Since you better not have become a lawyer. And I says, I would say I'm disappointed. That's what I would say. She said, why are you hating on me? I was like, no, I'm not hating on you. I'm not hating on lawyers, but I know that there's more value that you give in your entrepreneurial capacity, in the way that you present information, and in the you give so much more. The ideal of you now trading time for dollars would be disappointing. That's that.
Yep. No, and it's one of those things interestingly enough, that's the reason why I didn't continue in law. Because for me, I looked at, all right, here are the problems that I saw. And here's the funny thing. Lawyers make a really good living. Like lawyers are trading dollars for hours, but they're trading dollars for hours at the rate
For
of
big hours.
300, 400, $500 an hour, right? So it's not like chump change hours. But the one thing that I looked at with the law was the problems that I was solving with the law. I didn't like the place in the stream where I was solving problems. With the law, oftentimes you're solving problems after they happen. If you get to be general counsel or in-house counsel, stuff like that, you get to start getting further upstream, but the work that you have to do to embed yourself into a company so that you have people who are listening to you before they make decisions.
That's interesting.
That
Preventative
was
law.
years, right? Yeah, that's years of work and all the rest of that. And I was just not, willing to do that. One of the interesting things is that running my business, running a leadership consulting practice, I get to do that from the beginning. Once I build relationships with CEOs, and they say, "We need you to talk to our team. We need you in these rooms having these conversations." Like that was what I wanted to do. That was where I felt like my biggest value was. So, I mean, it was a tough choice because, like I said, had a friend of mine that got out of Marine Corps in about a year and a half before I got out of Marine Corps, and within a year of his practice, he was making 240 grand a year, right? And I was just like, I could definitely that's a
Seeing all
nice
your
life,
friends. I
right?
think Hermosi talked about that. He's like,
Hmm.
he went to Vanderbilt, right? And he says,
Yep,
my friends were getting these great jobs. He said he was sleeping on a gym floor.
exactly, and it's one of those things. But now 5 years in and looking at how everything is shaked out, I wouldn't trade it. I
Yeah.
think that and the upside for me, and it's funny because now my friend who is still a lawyer, he's starting a business and trying to do stuff outside of the law because again, it'll burn you out. 'Cause it's a grind and it's constant. You've got all the things and you're the delivery person and you're right. So whereas with his business, he's trying to exit now 5 years later. With my business, I'm growing and trying to figure and growing my team and growing people to do the things because I'm exiting differently, right? I'm exiting delivery, but I don't have to exit the business to exit delivery. Whereas ultimately, in what he's doing, he's generally going to have to exit the business in order to exit delivery
Mm,
because so much of what he does is,
it's wrapped up in him.
idiosyncratic. It's wrapped up in him. So,
And that's the lesson, everybody. We hope that this particular workshop, if you like it, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't, if you just happened across this, if you saw one of the shorts out there, or you were checking this out on TikTok or whatever, and you hear this piece, this is what we're getting to. If you hate the business, sell it. But then if you sell it, really ask yourself, what is it worth? And if you're in the
mhm,
business and you've heard this, before you sell it, then ask, how can I create this business or build it to sell? Like the
like the book
what's the
says,
author's name? John
John
Warrillow.
Warrillow. Yeah,
That
John
is it.
Warrillow.
I want you all to read that book. Maybe come back and tell us what you thought. Put it in the comments. What did you feel about that? What you feel about what we talked about today? We just wanted to tease out a couple things because Rob and I are creating individually and then together some opportunities for you to jump into this narrative, right? And we're probably going to do like a live or something like that and invite you in, and then have some people with some questions, and then we'll solve it right on air. Two business guys masterminding. You know what we do. So this is something that I'm really interested in because I'm seeing a lot of people at that stage in their businesses and their lives. They want to sell, they can't stand what they're doing. The business thinks to them, somebody in the family is going, toss it overboard, but it's their baby. They don't know how, they have no value to it. And they're really saying, what am I selling? That's it. All right,
That's
Rob.
it.
Anything else you want to share with everybody before you go?
Just
You
let
got a
them
couple
know.
things coming up pretty soon, don't
Yeah,
you?
yeah. We definitely I'm doing a couple of things. If you're in the Grand Rapids area, you can catch me. I'll be speaking at Failure Lab on August 10th, which is a showcase designed to teach us the power of failure in our lives to be a transformative force. And then I will also be speaking with the Lean Consortium. Lean Solutions is putting on a phenomenal workshop October 2nd through the 4th, and I'll be speaking there as well. So you catch me at both of those places.
That's good stuff. We'll leave some descriptions, some links in the description field for everybody. All right, and we'll catch you on the next one.
All right, have a great one, everybody.